everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a book tag. It's going to be the mid-year freakout book tag. I can't recall who originally created the tag, but actually if I can recall who it is, of course I'm going to be listing it in the I was going to say comments because I've been on TikTok for so long. I'm going to leave it in the description box below. I actually think the video is no longer available because I did try to look before doing this. Right now I only really have like a handful of reading goals for the year. It's read 50 titles like I do every year, and at this point I think I have 21. Yes, 21 books. So I'm a little behind right now, but I feel like I can easily catch up because I'm only like 3 or 4 books behind at this point according to Goodreads. And of course I have those anticipated reads that I talked about around Christmas time. I'm actually going through those right now, and I hope to actually film like an update video eventually. So question number 1, best book you've read so far in 2023, and my choice is Frizzy by Claribel Ortega. I recently heard about this author because she and her publishing team sent me like an arc for Witchlings, and I've been meaning to read that. And when I saw this book as part of like the school reading list, like on the shelves at my library that I work at, I was like, oh, I didn't realize she also wrote this. And so I like picked it up, took it home, and I read it. And I went through it relatively quickly because it's a graphic novel. It's about a young girl's experiences with like really accepting and not accepting, but learning to really love her hair. She has really curly hair, and she's been pretty much told all her life, if you have straight hair, then you have good hair. And she has to go to the salon like every week to get her hair straightened, and she really hates that experience until she sees her aunt. Her aunt is really loving her curly hair, and her aunt helps her like learn how to take care of her curly hair. And I just thought it was so sweet and heartwarming seeing this like young character really learn to love herself. Honestly, I think there should be like more books about that, especially for the age range that this was geared towards. I'm super picky with my 5-star reads, and I actually rated this 5 stars. Question number 2, best sequel you've read so far in 2023, and that is Lore Olympus Volume 4. At least I'm assuming it's Volume 4. My library had Volume 3, which kind of like reminded me that this graphic novel series existed because it's been a while since I've read it on Webtoons. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I really love this. Let's take this home. And of course, it immediately reignited my like obsession with it. And so I went to Webtoons and just read until I like caught up as far as I could. I can't really get too much into it without like spoiling what happens along the story, but it's a Hades and Persephone like retelling, like gods with like kind of a modern twist. And the author also like handles and talks about essay and like mental health awareness. I think the whole story is incredibly well done, and it is one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things to read. And my goal eventually is to collect all the books like as a hardbound. Question number 3, a new release you haven't read yet but want to, and that is Happy Place. Of course, I'm forgetting Emily Henry. Yes, Emily Henry. I've read a couple of things by her at this point. I've read Beach Read and something else. The People We Meet on Vacation. Like overall, I've enjoyed her stuff. I haven't necessarily loved it. Like I enjoy myself enough to like see the story through to the end, but I always find like a couple of things I don't necessarily love. But it's still a great read. I've so far enjoyed both things that I've read by her, which was the People We Meet on Vacation and Beach Read. In fact, I actually took Beach Read when I went on vacation in the beginning of the year, and like I think I'll enjoy Happy Place. I'm hoping that eventually I will absolutely love something by her. So far, it's just been like fun, easy to read kind of books, but nothing that necessarily wows me. And I'm hopeful that will change with Happy Place, because her like style of writing. There's something about it that eventually I feel like something's really going to grab me. Question number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and it's Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. When I did my anticipated reads video, I did as much research as I could, but to be honest, I eventually got kind of tired and a little lazy. And so once I had at least 5 choices, I'm like, excellent, I can create a video now. And it wasn't until after I posted that video that I saw a video by My Name is Marenas, and she talks about this book, and I loved everything that I've read by Elizabeth Acevedo. She's definitely one of my favorites, and as soon as I learned that Family Lore was coming out this year, I'm like, okay, this is now in an honorable mention. We have to read this year. And I actually, I got the ARC. I'm going to be doing like a book haul video shortly after this. But I got the ARC, and I was super excited to get my hands on it. I can't wait to start reading it. Question number 5, biggest disappointment, and that is Mr. Wrong Number. This looks like I could potentially really enjoy it, but I didn't really. The author's name is by Lynn Painter, and it looks like it's potentially a series. I don't think I'm going to pick up the rest of the books. And the premise was basically, this girl is an absolute hot mess, and she has to move in with her brother because she burned down her apartment after a breakup. And she's now looking for a job and trying to get her life back together, and her brother's roommate is kind of giving her a hard time. And she eventually gets this text from this wrong number, and she starts kind of like this steamy affair, like just through text messaging with this guy, only for it to be revealed later that it's actually the brother's roommate. And of course there's like complications from that. And even though like the idea was pretty good, I don't think I liked the characters enough. Like, I wanted to see them succeed, but to be honest, they kept making choices that I didn't necessarily care for. And especially the ending. The ending, it happened like happy enough, but to be honest, I had high hopes in the beginning of the story, but by the end, I ended up rating this like 2 out of 5 stars, and that usually tells me that, okay, there was a couple of pluses, but to be honest, I didn't really care for this. I keep doing it. Book number 6. Question number 6. Biggest surprise, and it's I Don't Need Therapy by Toni Lodge. And I was going through Audible. I wanted to just quickly put in an audiobook so I can listen to something while I go shelve while I'm at work, because I find shelving to be a very mind-numbing activity, and I hate doing it without any sort of anything playing in my ear. And so I saw this, it looked relatively funny, and so I put it on, and I kind of like had no idea who Toni Lodge is or was. As I was listening to it, I then went to like Google who Toni was, and she's a podcaster. She hosts this podcast with her boyfriend, and it's very successful. They're relatively famous, of course, because she has an audiobook. And I'm like, okay, so she's a bit of a comedian. I expected this to just be very funny, but there was quite a few moments where she got pretty vulnerable. Like, especially when she was talking about losing her mom, like her mom passed from cancer. That like made me choke up a little bit. Like, the fact that she was willing to be open and so raw and be able to convey that while she's reading her book, I was really pleasantly surprised by this. I think I'm going to actually look into her podcast and see if I can like get into her podcast as well, because this book was very good. Question number 7, favorite new author, debut or new to you. And actually, I've read a couple of things by this author this year. It's Debbie Tung. She's this artist. She does graphic novels, and she kind of like does the same thing that Lucy Knisley. See, it's late and I'm tired. It's Knisley. I know for that the last name is Knisley. They both kind of do like graphic novel memoirs where they talk about things from their experiences. And the first thing I read by her was Everything is Okay, where she kind of talks about her mental health issues. And as someone who also struggles with my own mental health issues, I found it really relatable, and I loved how she was able to convey her own vulnerability through this art medium. So when I saw that we had other things by her at the library, of course I had to pick up Happily Ever After and Everything in Between, and Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, an Introvert Story. And each book had its own different message, and I thoroughly enjoyed each one. I think that she's a new Insta-buy author for me. I think I'm going to try to collect her books as well. Question number 8, a question that I never answer because I've done this tag a couple of times over the years, is newest fictional crush. I think this is a weird question, mostly because I've never experienced this. Because I think I don't quite get that involved in the characters that I'm reading. Watch, one of these days I'm going to eat my words. But I don't have an answer to this question, so I'm just going to leave it blank. And I realized that sounded very judgmental, that wasn't my intention. So if you do have fictional crushes, I wish that I can like get that lost in a story. And I think it's only weird to me because I can't imagine it, like I can't relate to it. So when I say weird, I don't necessarily mean it in a bad way. I just mean it as it's just very different for me. Question number 9, newest favorite character, and Vera Wong. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers was one of my anticipated reads for the year, and I saw it at the library. I immediately picked it up. I didn't really have time to read it, and so I eventually got the audiobook. And I'm glad I did, because definitely I wouldn't have known how to pronounce quite a bit of the food that Vera talks about in the book. But basically, Vera is this like older woman who lives in Chinatown, and she owns like kind of this tea shop. She lives above it. There's a tea shop, and her tea shop is unfortunately isn't doing all that well. She has one customer a day, and that's it. And her son doesn't really visit her, and so she kind of has this really lonely existence until one day she finds a body in her tea shop. Like she goes down to start her day, and there's a body there. She calls the police, but she doesn't think the police are very good at their jobs, and so she just takes upon herself to investigate it herself because she clearly knows better than the police. And she was just this busybody. I loved her. She at times it was like very exasperating seeing how she would make connections and like talk to other people, but a lot of times it was just very funny. I loved how unapologetic she was. Question number 10, a book that made you cry, and of course I Don't Need Therapy. That made me choke up a couple of times because how emotional Tony got. But I think I'm going to use another book as an example too. I don't think I really choked up at this. Of course it's very sad. The content is very sad, and it's numb to this. Memoir of a Mass Shooting by Kendra Neely, and this is a graphic novel memoir about where Kendra talks about the emotional impact and the PTSD that she went through after surviving a mass shooting. As you can imagine, it's really emotional, and the content is very, very highly charged. Question 11, book that made you happy. Happily Ever After by Debbie Tung is definitely a book that made me very happy. This one focuses on her relationship with her spouse, and it's just so cute. The way she talks about him and like the different experiences that they had together as a couple, it made me reminisce a lot of my own relationship with my husband. And it's just, a lot of it was very similar and it was very relatable, and I just thought it was so cute. And of course, another one that made me very happy is Vera Wong's Unsolicited like Advice for Murderers. Because like I said, the beginning starts off as like she has this rather lonely existence, but that absolutely changes by the end of the book, and that made me happy. She really deserved happiness to find her. Question number 12, the most beautiful book you bought so far this year. I don't really buy books. I've said before that because I work at this library, we get a lot of like book donations, and a lot of times we're allowed to kind of pick through before it gets dropped off in like the friends of the library and their workroom, because once it gets there, it's pretty much theirs. And so anytime that a book gets thrown in the book drop, of course I like take a peek and look through it. And so a lot of these books in the book haul video I'm about to do, I didn't spend any money on them. But I guess the most recent book that I added to my collection is this one. Bear with me just a second. Is this one. I don't know how well you can see because I don't know how much the light is just washing this out. But it's this like little copy of The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Growing up, my dad would actually read me these stories, and I have a very soft place in my heart for these. And it's just, overall, it's just a very pretty book. It's very small, so I can easily carry it with me. Gold leaf. Obsessed with gold leaf. It's just very fancy. And I like how the pages feel. It's that like very fragile, like very thin kind of paper. There's not a whole lot of like illustrations. But overall, I think this is a really cute book, and I think it's like the prettiest book that I got recently. Ooh, what does it look like naked? I don't think I've looked. Oh, it's cloth bound. See, that's very cute. I love a good vintage, can I say it correctly? Vintage kind of feel to a book. Yeah, I think that is the prettiest book I got this year. And the last question, question number 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And they're from my anticipated reads video, since I do want to read all of them and then kind of do like an update video. And so we have Happy Place, The Do's and Donuts of Love, and of course I don't have the author's name in front of me. I struggled to say her name in the previous video too. Do's and Donuts. Adiba Jagirdar. And of course Family Lore. So I do have 3 books that I really would like to read by the end of the year. And that's it. That's all I got for you guys for today. Let me know down in the comments how you're doing with your reading goals for the year. Are you doing, are you exceeding these expectations? Or are you struggling a little bit? I know I've been. I think for the month of, was it May? I don't think I read anything in May. I think I read a couple pages here and there. And I just went through the biggest reading slump. But let me know how you're doing down in the comments below. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I guess it's ta-ta for now. Bye, guys.